Good afternoon, Exchange Heights and guests. Is this on? Good afternoon, Exchange Heights.
Afternoon. Afternoon, President. I can hear them breathing, Bill. They're out there.
This is a special program, and to start with, Reverend Kenny will lead us in prayer.
Can we get a microphone? Thank you. Can I get a...
Lord, inspire many of our best citizens to accept the life-protecting call of being firefighters or police officers. We need individuals of integrity, courage, common sense, common decency, and uncommon courage to fulfill these roles in society. Generations of heroes have fulfilled these tasks and played an indispensable role in building our nation and holding together civilization itself. May all people of goodwill support and show their thanks to the police and firefighters who protect us from danger. Time and again, these heroes have put themselves in harm's way for the sake of people they do not even know. Time and again, they have paid the ultimate price in the service of human community. We thank them for their gift of their lives, and we ask you to watch over them. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Mayor, would you lead us in a pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Have a seat. Take care of a little business. Are there any guests in the audience? There are lots, but none that would join the Exchange Club. You're all welcome, by the way.
Well,
Secondly, health and welfare. Everybody's healthy. Okay, I have one more thing, and then we'll finish our meal and get on with our program. Would all those who were at the raffle please stand? I just want to tell you how much we appreciate your working and making things happen. It was a real show of force. It was a night which we didn't plan on the Cubs. We should have, but we didn't. And it was just a great night, and thank you so much for the work you did. You deserve a hand. So now let's have our meal, and we'll go from there. Well.
Any other?
Okay, we'll begin with our program. But before we begin, we'd just like to welcome all the people who support us, who make it possible for us to live, and it's a pleasure to have you. I'd now like to turn the program over to Phil Freeze, who will take it from here.
Thank you, Bill. Well, to start off with, I'd like to be a little redundant. I'm still here. Anyhow, good morning, and the Exchange Club is pleased to honor our police, fire, and EMS departments here in Michigan City and LaPorte County. We'd also like to recognize all of you who made a special effort to get here today. The mayor, the chief from the fire and police department, and the EMS director. Any commissioners that are here, I don't know that I saw any commissioners come in. The prosecutor is here, I think. There he is, thank you. And Councilwoman Pat Boyd. And if I missed anybody, I apologize. And the special guest of the recipients and any past award recipients who are here. The News Dispatch, I saw Richard, there he is back there. We FM, and I thought I saw Ron, but I don't. There he is, right there. And Access Laporte, Andre's here to run the camera. And of course, the Exchange Club members, thank you. And I, again, apologize for anybody who I omitted today. The committee, which consists of Jim Erickson and Lyle Peters, Alan Cernat, Jack Van Netten, and myself, evaluate each application that we received, and that way then the committee determined a recipient. A man who doesn't need any introduction, I would hope not to most of you anyhow. But in case you don't know, I'd like to introduce Mayor Ron Meir, who was going to say a few words this morning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Freeze. Appreciate that. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And once again, it's a great honor to be here to recognize our first responders, policemen and firefighter of the year. And so I think I've been at all these, and I really enjoy it. And I think, you know, some of my other departments think that I favor the police and fire over other departments, but maybe there's a little bias there. But they are crucial to our society, and they're great men and women that protect and serve our community. A little bit, usually I know the firefighter of the year and I know the police officer of the year. This year, in regards to the firefighter, Mr. Drew Blue, which I love that name. It brings me back. I mean, we got to relate everything to the Chicago Cubs now. So when I think back to the 70s, and I was a Cubs fan, but I also like the Oakland A's because Charlie Finley was here in LaPorte County, and there was a pitcher then named Vida Blue. So that was the first reference. I think they spell it differently though. But anyway, you know, back then in the Cubs it was Jack Brickhouse. You know, you had Jose Cardinal and Rick Monday and Joe Pepitone and people like that. And so that's kind of time when I really followed the Cubs. And then in recent years I've kind of got back into it. But so I didn't really have a good story for Drew. So I said I'll have to make one up about him because I really don't have anything to say that. But no, what I've been told as I talked to the chief and so a few other firefighters is that actually when as mayor, when you don't hear an employee's name much or often, that's almost a good thing. You know, when you hear a name a lot, it could be kind of a bad issue sometimes. But everything I hear about Drew is that he is an outstanding firefighter, that he comes to work every single day with the right attitude. He wants to train more. He wants to learn more, that he admires his fellow brother firefighters and works with them. And he even, my understanding is outreaches in the community to help others to possibly have the prospect of becoming firefighters or works with volunteer fire departments. So that's a great thing to know that we have young men and women like Drew that are representing our fire departments. And then in reference to Corporal Alt. Now I do know Corporal Alt, and I've known him for some time, and I do have a really good story that's based pretty much on my perspective. We'll see what he says a little bit, but once again, congratulations to Corporal Alt. But when I was first elected as a city councilman, I don't know, around 14, 15 years ago, I happened to be at a Pop Warner football game, and it was the championships, and they were being held at Ames Field, and so there was other teams in from North Judson and Knox and areas, and Michigan City's Pop Warner teams have been pretty successful, and I think with my middle son may have been on the team at the time. So we were there, and so were the fans from these other cities and things. And there's no noisemakers allowed. And I know firefighter Kalitha is aware of some of the rules with Pop Warner and such too. No noisemakers were allowed or anything. Well, North Judson was beating us, and I was, not happy. But every time they scored a touchdown, they had these rattlers and these horns and things. And so I said something to some of the Pop Warner officials. I said, look, that's not allowed. And then I was a little bit more forceful. I said, "What, aren't you guys going to do anything about that? There's not supposed to be any noise." And so pretty much they turned on me and said, any more out of you and you're out of here. And I'm thinking, only in Michigan City could I get kicked out of my own stadium, and then the other opposing team is getting away with this. So as I kept on them, they said, "You're gone. Bye. You're out of here." And so I sat down and I refused to leave. So they said, "Well, we're going to go get the security, the police officer." So guess who was security and police officer that day? Was Corporal Alt. So I seen him going to get him, so I knew that I couldn't stay there, so I disappeared and I went up into the box up at the top, the observation deck there, and kind of slid in there because I knew some guys in there and things. And I sat back on a stairwell and I watched him search for me for about half an hour. I mean, he was looking all over the place. The Pop Warner officials were looking for me, and kind of just left my wife and daughter there, actually, so they didn't say anything. So eventually he finds his way up to the score box, and he goes inside, and he's looking down. I can see him looking because I'm sitting behind him in a stairwell, and he says to all them guys, "Any of you guys seen that councilman anywhere?" And it was just complete silence. None of them told him. And then he was walking past me, and he caught me out of the corner of his eye, and he says, "Come on, you got to go with me." And so, but it was just, he was very professional and things, and he let me talk to him about the whole situation. But anyway, we didn't get those. I think we got rid of the noisemakers after that too, so that did help. But all jokes aside, these people that serve our community, I think sometimes get a little bit overlooked on that they're human beings. They're dealing with things with their family. Their family loves them, worries about them, whether they're firefighters or police officers. And particularly in today's society, we need to have a support base for them as much as possible. And that comes from, like I say, the family, it comes from coworkers, it comes from the chiefs that represent them and take care of them. So it's a great honor to be here today, and I can't wait to hear their stories and speeches today. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. On the back of your program, there is a selection of the Public Safety Award recipients, and there's a paragraph that follows. I'm not questioning anybody's reading ability, but for those that are not here for the television and radio and the newspaper, anyhow, I would like to read this paragraph. Letters of recommendation are submitted to the police chief, the fire chief in their respective department, and also to the EMS administration. Those recommendations are then forwarded to the Exchange Club for evaluation and choosing the recipient for the Public Service and Safety Award. We use the word recipient because there are no winners or losers among the nominees submitted. All nominees are held in the highest esteem and are to be honored and congratulated for their nomination for their service and the service they provide to the public. Unfortunately, we can only present this award to one individual from each department. Through their dedication to excellence and outstanding accomplishment, all police officers, firefighters, and the EMS and any other body that works to protect citizens of LaPorte County and make it a better place to live. And again, for that, heartfelt thanks to all of you. The mayor was talking about baseball, and it's been a huge part of my life. I was always one that liked the nicknames. We had Moose Scourin, Scooter Rizzuto, and Pee Wee Reese. And there are a few of my ex-players that are here today. And I always tried to come up with nicknames for them. Some of them I couldn't call them because they weren't very nice. But anyhow, not all the time, just when they, didn't do too well. But I really like nicknames, so I try to sit around and think of nicknames for people. Don't always call them by that. Anyhow, back to the program. At this time, I would like the police chief, Mark Swistek, to make a few comments, and we'll go on from there.
Phil, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of the men and women of the Michigan City Police Department, I'd like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank the Exchange Club, all of its members, for once again honoring those of us in community service, especially our emergency responders. To EMS Lieutenant Barnhart, congratulations today. Firefighter Andrew Blue, congratulations as well. And to the leadership in public safety in our community, to Chief Novak and Director McGuire from EMS, thank you for everything that they do each and every day. With the rhetoric that's currently going on in this great nation with law enforcement, we from the Michigan City Police Department truly appreciate opportunities like these to recognize and honor staff members from our department who do exceptional deeds each and every day. Corporal Steve Alt could not be more deserving of this award. In the back of the room, Lieutenant Kerry Brinkman, Assistant Chief Royce Williams, myself, we all came on about the same time with Steve Alt, about a year apart. And Steve got to watch us mature within the department, and we got to watch him mature as well. And ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you, he is an excellent leader in law enforcement. He does a great job for us each and every day. I couldn't be more happy of the things that Steve does for this department. Steve was hired back on July 22nd, 1991. He's currently completed 25 years of service. He was promoted to corporal on September 1st of 2005. At that time, he left the Uniform Patrol Division where he served previously for the better part of his career, where he was a mentor to many of the young officers on our department. Steve's always been the go-to guy. If your computer freezes up, if you got a technical question, Corporal Steve Alt's the guy you go to. He would always help us out of a bind and still does that to today. Steve is the recipient of 2 Exceptional Service Awards, 6 Letters of Commendation, and 2 Life-Saving Awards. He had previously served in our investigative division. He is currently the training coordinator within our Division of Professional Services. He is our scuba commander, where he has served over 10 years with our search and rescue team, and has been our IDEX coordinator for over 15 years. I want to share a story with you. It's one of Steve's letters of commendation, and it goes back all the way to December of 2006. And this is very important because if we think back 10 years ago, the internet was really taking life. Things were happening quickly with technology on the internet, and there were a lot of predators out there on the internet as well. Back in December of 2006, while working an undercover operation with the United States Secret Service in a joint operation named Operation Safe Childhood, Corporal Steve Alt posed as an undercover 13-year-old female teenager online and chatted with prospective child predators. He volunteered for this assignment, and this endeavor lasted for several weeks. He was very dedicated to the job, traveling back and forth from South Bend, Indiana. This operation netted over 30 arrests of internet child predators, of which Corporal Alt had the involvement in at least 8 of these arrests. There were over 500 man-hours that were dedicated to this highly successful sting. For his work in that operation, Steve received a letter of commendation from Chief Ben Neitzel at the time. We have our LaPorte County Prosecutor, John Espar, with us here today, and he has taken on the endeavor to continue this work with his Internet Crimes Against Children unit. I, from law enforcement, feel this is a very, very important unit for this county, and the work that Steve did over 10 years ago continues today because the predators that are out there, they're preying on our most valuable resource, and that's our children. So, Steve, thank you for 10 years ago for having the hindsight to volunteer for this assignment, and thank you to all those who continue on today in the work that they do to protect our children. At this time, I would now like to bring forward Lieutenant Kerry Brinkman, the commander of our investigative division, who will read the one of 3 letters of nomination for Steve this year. And I think that's also stellar to know that from within our department, there were 3 separate letters of recommendation for this award. So at this time, Kerry.
So I guess I'm going to read the letter that was submitted for the nomination of Corporal Steve Alt. In March of 2016, Michigan City Police Department switched to an electronic reporting system in an attempt to become paperless and become part of a bigger reporting system. The system links us up to surrounding counties and other law enforcement agents in the state. Prior to the switch, it was known that this would be a great and major undertaking involving training every officer of the department, and this task was assigned to Corporal Alt. Corporal Alt was shown the system and trained on his side. This also included a booklet of over 1,000 pages to include all the little things that he was not covered on or not covered or wasn't shown during the training. Every officer went through the training, and there was a great nervousness to how this would be implemented and the outcome. Keep in mind, this is not just a system that just takes reports. This new system ties everything together, incorporates different areas of the department that were formerly separate. This includes arrest reports, tickets, impounds, case reports, and evidence, just to name a few. The new system is put in place and is soon learned that there can be many different outcomes in report depending on the little box that is checked or not checked. This goes along with the small glitches that come along with any new computer system. This brings me to the part that I believe to be extraordinary. Corporal Alt, from day one on this project, made himself available 24 hours a day. I know he routinely received calls at all hours of the day and night, to include the times while he was sleeping. While he was sleeping, he would get out of bed, log into the computer system, and try to figure out for the officers working what was the problem and would work it through them from his home. I do not believe a day has gone by that he has not answered some question on the new system. Corporal Alt has been the person that everyone goes to when there's a problem and he is frustrated. In this spot, he has received a lot of officers' anger and frustration, which he had no control over. Some of it was mine. Through this, Corporal Alt has remained a positive and continues to chug along. Keep in mind, the details that I have described are in addition to his normal duties, which he was asked to keep up on. I can only imagine the amount of time Corporal Alt has donated in this year through the fielding of phone calls and answering of questions while he was not working. For his continued support to his fellow officers, I recommend Corporal Alt for the 2016 Police Officer of the Year.
Thank you, Kerry. At this time, I'd like to bring forward Corporal Steve Alt to receive his award and ask him to say a few words.
Well, that was quite a surprise. I had a introduction, I was going to introduce my family, but this great day has gone on with heavy heart because I found out today that the top star, Sergeant Wilson, passed away last night. So I'd like to have a minute to remember him, please. Thank you. In my 25 years of being a police officer, this has had to be one of the most stressful years of my career. A career that included stressful events such as being involved in 2 officer shootings, one of which my partner, retired Officer Zumak, was shot. I had to pull him out. The difference between those stressful events and what happened this year was almost immediately, was this system called Interact. This has lasted, those events ended quickly, where this Interact has been with us now, like Lieutenant Brigman said, the whole year. I get calls every day. About 7 years ago is when we decided we were going to go with this system, and I was trained 7 years ago, and it took 7 years to put this in play. At that time, someone had to figure out the system, and I knew that person needed to be me. My achievements that I read to you this day pale in comparison to the other members of the Michigan State Police Department. The other 84 fellow brothers and sister police officers, as well as our 8 civilian staff. From the uniform division that is out there every day, not just driving around, but actually preventing crime in areas that can't be measured by statistic, to the investigative division that wishes things could be like CSI, where they find a strand of hair, have it examined, at the end of a 60-minute period, the crime is ended. I'm sure Lieutenant Brickman would like that. The administration, who I have never seen put out so forth in the community as they do, as this administration does. I've never seen this many community events. And then my division, the Division of Professional Standards. My supervisor, Sergeant Yagelski, is out every day keeping the public informed and having to go out and meet their needs. Sometimes the administration has the task of having what we feel is a nominal complaint, but have to make sure that that complaint is followed up on. And they also have to keep the morale of the department high. Webster's dictionary defines a professional as a person characterized or confronting to the technical or ethical standards of a profession, exhibiting a courteous, conscientious, and generally businesslike manner in the workplace. So where do you find people or police organization that fits that definition? Well, that's easy. It's the Michigan State Police Department. It's 92 members. We are not just a group of coworkers, we're family. These are tough times for law enforcement. When I began my career in the 90s, public opinion was poor at best. It took a tragedy on September 11th to sway the opinion of all public to the highest I've ever seen. Now, once again, we seem to be victims of scrutiny and armchair quarterbacking. A tragedy occurs where a human being is killed by a police officer acting in self-defense, which leads to protests. Even ridiculous calls by some radicals to abolish law enforcement. A police officer is killed on a traffic stop, no one protests. You heard comments like, that's their job, or ridiculous statements like was made by a poor Indianapolis police officer who was shot and killed, and the aunt of the killer said he shouldn't have never got out of his car. The Chicago police officer just recently who was justified to shoot, but she allowed herself to be seriously injured, almost dying, because she loves her community, such as we do, every member of the Michigan State Police officer does, and knew there would be protests and didn't want to spark any protests. We just want the public to know that we're human. We laugh, we cry, we hurt, we feel good, and we make mistakes too. Mistakes on a level statistically far less than the average person. So how do we regain that opinion in law enforcement nationwide? It's simple. You follow the lead of the 92 members of the Michigan City Police Department, of the professionals that I've worked with, along with that administration. Specifically in the areas I'd like to name where they reach out is to the communities, the Easter egg hunt, Shop with the Cop, and Assistance Academy, just to name a few. In closing, I predict that one day in the near future, public opinion of law enforcement across the nation will return to the high level it should be. The day is going to come where people judge everyone as an entire nation on what's in here and not what's out here. Thank you, everyone.
Again, congratulations to Officer Alt. At this time, I would like the Fire Chief, Randy Novak, to come up and make a few comments.
Good afternoon, everybody. And I too would like to thank the Exchange Club for hosting this every year, and congratulate the Corporal Alt and Butch over at EMS for their awards. And to tell you what a pleasure it is to be the representative of all the men and women of the Michigan City Fire Department. What a pleasure it is, because the men and women of the Michigan City Fire Department are some of the best people and provide some of the best professional service that you could ever imagine. Before I bring Captain John Mellon up here to read Drew Blue's letter, just want to acknowledge that what an outstanding firefighter Drew Blue is. He's been on the department for about a little over, I think, just short of 7 years, but he's had over 10 years in the fire service, so he started out as a volunteer. And he recently, well, first of all, I want to congratulate him on his just getting married to his beautiful wife sitting next to him, Brittany. So got to acknowledge all those things. And That's a much bigger challenge and accomplishment than he ever did in the fire service. I understand, you got to take care of home first. But Firefighter Blue just completed the smoke diver course in Indianapolis. And if anybody's ever heard of that, this is like the elite force of the fire service. This is 6 days of the most grueling, brutal things that they could possibly put you through, and he just recently completed that last month, or the beginning of this month. And we're very proud of him. I think there's 30 in Indiana. Is it your number 30, I believe? So we're very, very proud of him. He's the first member of the Michigan City Fire Department to ever complete this. And congratulate his parents, Chris, because Chris and I went to school together, and Leon went to school with my wife, so known them for a long time. So I'm not as long talking as the police chief. So at this time, I'm going to bring up Captain John Mellon to read the letter. Trying to be as nice as I could, Chief.
Thank you. All right, the letter that I wrote, we had 3 separate calls that Drew does something every day that stands out to me, but I just chose 3 separate occasions that I felt were really important this year. On April 17, 2016, Engine 1 responded to a report of a structure fire. It ended up being food on the stove that had also melted the wiring to the exhaust hood above the stove. The basement apartment was filled with smoke. After we assisted the resident out of the apartment, Firefighter Blue went back in to remove a large pit bull that was penned in the apartment. Not knowing how a penned dog would react was not a concern for Drew. His only concern was for the well-being of the dog, and he was able to bring the dog out safely. On May 2nd, 2016, Engine 1 responded to a reported dryer fire. The laundry room was on fire. Engine 2 was in the laundry room putting the fire out. And our assignment was to back them up. As we approached the back of the house, we were told that there were 2 large pit bulls in the basement. Again, Drew reacted immediately, going into the smoke-filled basement, located the dogs, bringing them both out. Again, on June 13th, we responded to a structure fire that came in with possible entrapment of the owner and several dogs. Prior to our arrival on scene, we were advised that the owner was already out of the house, but the dogs were still in the house. We arrived to find a large portion of the house on fire. As we entered, we went to the left towards the fire, but only made it a few feet before we heard the dogs barking behind us. Again, Firefighter Blue turned back, found the basement door, and went down to retrieve the dogs. Unfortunately, not all the dachshunds survived the fire. I got that. But Drew and several others were able to save 7 of them. I would be remiss to have left this nomination in just 3 instances. He continually seeks out additional training, always trying to better himself, always willing to train. Firefighter Blue's passion for being a firefighter is contagious. He exemplifies what a firefighter should be, and he makes all who work with him better. So for not only the 3 acts, but for his continual drive to make himself and everyone around him better, I would like to nominate Drew Blue for this award. I have a little something else to add to that. As the chief mentioned, that Drew just finished the smoke divers course, which is an incredibly grueling course. I reached out to Matt Stewart. He is Indiana Smoke Diver #1. He's the head of the Indiana Smoke Divers. And I asked him if he would like to say anything today. So he did send me a letter that he wanted read today. It says, "I'd be glad to say a few words about Blue. Our program is one of the most intense and mentally challenging programs out there. I always tell the candidates that just committing and training for the program says a lot about the individual." Losing my light here. "I get the honor of spending a lot of the candidates' downtime with them during the week. We have little talks and encouragement sessions. Blue was squared away all week long. Always had great and sometimes humorous answers. Even though no one ever feels like they glide through the week, and no one does, He was impressive to all the instructors early on. The program allows candidates to push themselves through some very tough times. And unknown to Blue, the instructor cadre always enjoyed watching him. He would at times get visibly frustrated, but never did he let it negatively affect his performance. There were several occasions that he would step up to regain control of a situation or the class. He was selected as the class leader that finally led the class to graduation. It's really impossible to put in words what these guys go through during the week, but he handled all aspects professionally and with confidence. I haven't known him nearly as long as you, but I've watched as he's worked through some of the toughest moments of his career. And as I said, never disappointed. We were very proud of him as an organization and are proud to call him one of our guys. You already know you have a great guy and an asset to your city. We are proud that we can now share with you and look forward to working with him in the future. Please congratulate Drew on our behalf. Drew.
Say my speech for me. At this time, Drew's going to talk, and as you know, Drew likes to talk, so.
Yeah. I really don't like to talk. I do not have a speech prepared, unlike some other people, but I don't even have nothing to say now. I just want to say thanks. I really couldn't have done it without my crew and department, and obviously the Exchange Club. That's about it. Thank you.
At least there wasn't any errors in his speech. Congratulations, Andrew. And now I'd like to introduce the Director of EMS, Mr. Andrew McGuire.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Hope everybody's doing okay today. It's a pleasure to be here today. It's also a pleasure to work beside the Michigan City Police Department and also the Michigan City Fire Department, Chief Swistek, Chief Novak. It's always a pleasure. Thank you. I'd like to thank the Michigan City Exchange Club for once again inviting us to participate in the award program today. I feel it's important to recognize employees who routinely go above and beyond. Whether it's a simple thank you or it's a wonderful program like this, I feel it's important to do. The men and women in all of the emergency services perform extraordinary tasks on a daily basis. You may risk your life or save a life, or you may simply brighten somebody's day by holding their hand on the way to the hospital or giving them a ride home. Most of the time, these actions are done without anybody knowing. Sometimes not even your coworkers, your management, and definitely not the general public. As a director, I try to keep an eye out for my employees going above and beyond, but it's not always easy. Most of our employees are very humble, and they go above and beyond because they have compassion and dedication for the job, not because they want a pat on the back. But once in a while, we catch on, and somebody realizes, and they nominate them for an award, and that gives us an opportunity to say thank you to them in a very meaningful way. I'd like to congratulate the award recipients today and thank all the men and women in emergency services for doing what they do every day. At this time, I'd like to bring up Captain Jeff Rose to read the nomination letter.
Thank you, Andrew.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank again the Michigan City Exchange Club for having this every year. I think it's very special to recognize police, ambulance, and fire. And I just want not only all you to know, which I think you do, but also the citizens of LaPorte County, how lucky they are to have the police and ambulance and fire that they have in LaPorte County. I think that it's a very unified group that stands together through everything that we go through, the situations, the tragedies. And, you know, Steve, I just want to tell you that I think it's a minority in this country that pick on police officers. I think the majority love police officers, ambulance, and firemen, and they need to step up, and their voice should be heard. But thank you to the police officers and what you guys do and the stress that you have in this troublesome times. Also, congratulations to Andrew, Steve, and Butch on their nominations and winning the award. I wrote this letter for Butch. He's on my shift, on C shift, and we've worked together for about 3 years. Dear Andrew, I am writing the letter of recommendation for Butch Barnhart for the Michigan City Exchange Club EMS Employee of the Year. I have had the pleasure of working with Butch for the last 3 years. Butch is very strong as a paramedic. He has a passion for his patients to make sure they get the best care possible. He has strong knowledge of his responsibilities, which makes him very effective. As a paramedic, he has constantly maintained a high level. He also works a lot of overtime and covers special off-duty events. After a year with the service, Butch took on the added responsibility of field training officer. During the monthly in-services, he always brought a high level of training for C-Shift. His training was also very unique and informative, studying, learning, preparing, and teaching the material so his fellow employees can continue to learn new knowledge and techniques for their positions. He was always prepared and knows the subject content before teaching it. He put a lot of planning into every in-service. He also became a preceptor for numerous EMTs, paramedics, and new employees to our service. This last year, he became the lieutenant for C-Shift in Michigan City. He's extremely well-organized and detail-oriented in his approach to tasks. He masters projects quickly and carries them out in a precise manner. He is always looking for added responsibilities to improve the service, making sure the ambulances, equipment, and bases are clean and kept up. He has quickly learned the extensive array of resources and services available to our service and uses them very effectively. He has a positive attitude and brings a calm confidence to the position of lieutenant. It is an honor to recommend Butch Barnhart for the EMS Employee of the Year.
Well, along with the other nominees, I'm honored to stand before you to recognize or to stand for you for the EMS part of this presentation. You can imagine my surprise when I heard I was even nominated for this award. I believe that there's 46 other just well-deserving individuals on the service that could have been standing here with you. Definitely was surprised when they told me I actually had won, so I want to thank Jeff for nominating me, and you know, it was for 2 years after I retired out of the Army, I kind of looked for a place to work. I tried a couple private services, and it just didn't feel like home. In February of 2013, I got hired here at LaPorte County EMS, and that was that family that I had lost for a couple of years after I retired. And you know, working with Jeff and some of the other personnel that you see sitting in here, you know, I knew that I had found a home. As Jeff mentioned, I have a passion for EMS. I did it for 20 years in the Army as a medic, and it just felt like home when I got out to do the same thing. So, you know, I just want to also congratulate Corporal Fire Department Blue on their awards also, and thank you all for coming out today.
Again, thanks to all of you that made an effort to attend today's honor for the 3 individuals from 2016, Butch Barnhart and Andrew Blue and Steve Alt. With that, our program is concluded. If the 3 individuals that we honored today, the 3 recipients, would stay around for anybody that would like to take some pictures. And again, thank you for your attendance.